Good morning, gamers! I'm LZ and I'm never doing that intro again. It's exclusive, it's the opposite of the extra greeting Curtis Connor gives you in every video. Speaking of videos, here's mine. Hello Neighbor was a game that got extremely popular during its development but was looked down upon after its release. Games are supposed to get better with every update, but points for originality to Hello Neighbor because it managed to get worse. I played one of the builds of this game with my cousin a long time ago, and I genuinely had a lot of fun. Maybe it's because there were two people there, maybe it's because I was years younger, but I remember it being really thrilling. I tried searching it up on YouTube, and I was really confused because every playthrough I found looked different, and they all had very different starting points. One extremely embarrassing thing about Hello Neighbor is the lengths they went to get MatPat to make another theory on their game. It only worked twice, but it just screams desperate, and that's never something you want to be as a game company. On the surface, Hello Neighbor's concept was just, you see your neighbor hiding something in his basement, and you go find out. Now, I've actually searched and searched, but I can't find what's in his basement. Like, you're kidding, right? We never find out what the scream was. Instead, we get these 3 horrible acts where the protagonist does these things completely pointlessly. Act 1 begins with a child called Nicholas Roth. He sees his neighbor locking someone in his basement. He goes to investigate and finds holding cells, but then the neighbor shows up and locks him in his house. Act 3 is when Nicholas returns to his neighborhood as an adult, and having nightmares about his childhood trauma. You actually fight a giant neighbor and a shadow thing, and then that's the game. The giant neighbor thing has to be like the worst boss battle I've ever seen in my life. I'm too excited to get into what I don't like about Hello Neighbor since there's so much, but I think I do have time to get into what I do like before the rewrite. This screenshot. Very good lighting. Overview of the rewrite. I knew I wanted to rewrite Hello Neighbor, but then I literally had nothing to go off, so I didn't bother with the idea. Then I started talking to a friend of mine about it, and it really helped. Here's how that went down. I wanted to make the neighbor's house bigger and scarier. Then I saw this screenshot and liked the dim lighting and the size of the house, so I decided I'm making the home not a stupid roller coaster, but a mansion. This also gives me the ability to add characters such as butlers, maids, and chefs. This is good because I feel we needed more characters than just the neighbor and the protagonist. It makes it feel a little bit more like Little Nightmares with the janitor, twin chefs, and the guests of them all at the end. Then I thought about the concept. It was different from your basic Escape the Kidnapper games. You were actually breaking in. But the whole basement thing was confusing and boring, so I forwent it entirely. Instead, the main character's motives are both, 1, revealed at the end of the game, and 2, up to you. You'll see how at the end of the rewrite. Then we started coming up for what the neighbor is doing. Rather than kidnapping, an original idea was he's using intelligent people's brains to power technology, but I wanted to lean into the idea of the neighbor being a lonely man whose family passed away. Then I used that idea and made it into an idea regarding the neighbor's house. I'll be honest, one inspiration was Encanto's Casita, the friendly living house that can move its bricks and tiles, and the hostile living house from the monster house. I thought it worked well with the whole ridiculous roller coaster house of the neighbor, except I'm making it a mansion, of course, so the size is maintained. Then we started making ideas for the neighbor himself. Instead of this goofy, non-intimidating gardener-looking man, we've made him a modern yet isolated man with the ability to turn people into things. And he doesn't chase you around ridiculously, you only see him at the end. So here's the rewrite. You start off in the living room of a dimly lit, slightly run-down mansion at what seems to be a sort of endless dawn, sort of 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. time period. You're here because you've heard that people just go missing after visiting the master of this house. The house seems to have several minds of its own, each part having different personalities. You make your way through the home, trying to hide from the head butler as he performs daily tasks such as opening up curtains in different rooms and setting up the house for the day. The rest of the butlers do different things around the area. The house and its furniture try to expose your attempt to go further, and they attempt to get you caught subtly, but this part of the house seems more shy than the rest. The chef of the house stocks the fridge and begins preparing breakfast. The kitchen seems to have a different personality to the living room. It's not timid at all. Rather, it's flamboyant and attempts to sabotage you using your own screw-ups. Upstairs are the bedroom where the maids work. The head maid sorts out the laundry and makes the beds. It's the easiest to get caught here due to this part of the home being more intelligent and predicting your movements and using the furniture to get you caught accordingly. This relates to how the original Hello Neighbor's concept was to have the neighbor learn your movements, but it didn't pan out. After a certain point in the game, the staff become alerted to your presence and everything becomes much harder from this point on, and there are even chase scenes. Sometimes the home comes after you as well, using its walls and tiles as obstacles. The game eventually leads you toward the main office, that being the goal. And finally, after the whole game, you enter the neighbor's office. Inside, it's completely silent, except for a ticking clock. A man sits at the desk at the back of the room, writing something down in a book. He doesn't even look at you. So you found me. After all this time. Has it been rewarding as you thought it would be? Breaking into my home? Well, since you've been so insistent on getting my attention, I have a question for you. What do you want? You get options depending on how you've played the game. Ending 1. Save the house. The man sitting opposite you is someone you've only seen in paintings scattered around his house. You tell him you want him to free the people who make up his home. He looks back down to his paper, uninterested. Clearly there's something you don't understand here. He stands up and leaves. The player follows him outside the door, only to find out that the house has completely changed. From here, you have to chase the neighbor and find him in this now completely randomized layout, and the difficulty is like on 110% because now the whole house is trying to kill you. So you have to avoid being killed and try to find one man in multiple rooms. And if you do somehow succeed and kill him, a cutscene begins. The neighbor dies and so does everything around him. The house goes completely still, begins losing its color, and rotting in front of you. You haven't freed the people in the house, you've killed them. This is the worst ending, basically. The one you get for not doing anything in the game. Ending 2. Join the house. The man sitting opposite you is someone you've not only seen in the paintings scattered around his house, but in the memories of the home itself. For this ending, you don't simply get to the office, but you actually take into consideration the broken parts of the sentient house. Every part of the house has something broken within it, such as a chandelier or a fireplace. By taking scattered parts around the house and fixing them up, you can tap into the memories of that part of the home. It turns out that the 3 main parts were deeply unhappy people who came to the neighbor for help and were turned into parts of the home just to escape their existence. After finding all the memories, the house stops being hostile towards you as you two now have an understanding. Playing this way unlocks both the save the house option and the join the house option. Once you choose this option, everything fades to black and reopens to the dining room, with the maids and butlers setting things up. A maid looks at the area and says that the table seems too close to the door. The tiles of the floor move, moving the table further. The maid thanks you, and the game ends. Ending 3. Joining the "Hey, what happened to my microphone?" The man sitting opposite you is someone you've not only seen in the paintings scattered around his house, but someone you've heard of through the words and the stories of the staff members. For this ending, you would have paid most attention to the staff members. While they're not in the area, you complete their tasks for them. Eventually, they acknowledge you and open up to you about their lives here, but they mainly talk about the work side of things. They don't expand on their backstories. Playing this way unlocks the staff joining option, where you opt to join the staff. This ending isn't too intense or bad. It's a pretty good ending where everyone is sort of doing okay and you get a job. Best ending. The Neighbor and I. The man you see at the back of the office is not just a man in the paintings, but the man you saw in the maid, butler, and chef's memories. For this ending, you've gone to the insignificant-seeming rooms that aren't alive like the rest of the home. Rooms that are part of the original home of your neighbor, ones that aren't possessed. In those rooms are little things, such as children's dolls, theater tickets, a dog collar, a bouquet of roses, and some less happy things, such as bills, crutches, and medication. You have to figure out which members of the house these items work with, such as the doll corresponding to the maid, and the dog collar corresponding to the chef. Once shown these, they become less hostile towards you, and you get a cutscene of what memory these objects are attached to. Once again, the main character has the ability to tap into people's memories when given objects in relation to them. The memory cutscenes themselves have the protagonist walking around in them like a ghost. If given the wrong objects, the characters won't react to you. Sometimes, though, 2 staff members will have different memories triggered by the same objects. Most notable is when you give them the medication. They share memories of the neighbor being apathetic and drowsy while taking them. Once all the objects have been shown to the correct staff, they'll have dialogue regarding you helping their master, and they'll begin helping you get towards his office. Once you're in the office, you can now select the "Your family was" option. The neighbor actually begins looking at you and taking you seriously. Nobody other than him and the home staff know about his family. He tells you about how his medication made him apathetic and tired, so much so that he stopped driving properly. Finally, he tells you about how his family were killed. He became unresponsive at the wheel, and this killed his wife and 2 children. From there, he refused to take his medication and stopped leaving the house. But things became increasingly lonely. People would come to him in order to escape their horrible existence, and he'd help them by turning them into parts of his home. And in turn, he'd feel less lonely. But still, nothing seemed to fill the hole in his heart. You get more dialogue options. When you choose the first option, everything fades to black. It cuts to you, the staff, and the neighbor sitting outside in the sun, with a considerably smaller home. He's let everyone go, and now he's working on himself. When you choose the second, it cuts to the future. The main character is slightly older, and walking into a much larger house. The neighbor has recruited more people. So basically this ending can either be the best one, or one of the worst ones, all depending on how you view escapism. So that's been my rewrite of Hello Neighbor. It didn't turn out quite as horror-y as I expected, but I think this game would still turn out to be good. If you like this video, then you're very cool and you're very epic, and I'm making a statue in your honor, and if you didn't, then